I'm pleased to have in the studio with me Elliot Mintzberg, who is a senior fellow at People for the American Way. PFAW.org is the website,
That's
right?
correct.
Yeah, there we go. People for the American Way. Norman Lear founded that organization.
That's absolutely correct. He's a wonderful man.
He is. He's a friend. He's a remarkable guy. And his wife, Lynn. So anyhow, should your boss be in between you and your doctor? This is an interesting topic, and this whole idea that Hobby Lobby has personhood rights. That I used to make a joke. Is Walmart a person? Well, apparently Hobby Lobby is. Tell us about where these cases are at. What's going on? What's happening in this little piece of the culture wars?
Well, this new case that the court just agreed on Friday to take, unfortunately, has the potential to make Hobby Lobby much, much worse. It could literally mean that millions of women lose access to the contraceptive coverage they're guaranteed under ACA, and also could allow individuals to try to abuse their religious liberty, turning it from a shield to protect their religion into a sword to go after other people's rights. What this case claims is that a religiously affiliated charity or hospital or college not only can raise its hand and say, we don't want to directly provide the coverage, you government arrange for our insurance company to do it. They don't even want to raise their hands. In other words, they want to take the position that they should be able to stop women who work from them from getting contraceptive coverage under the ACA.
Now, my understanding of this is that if a corporation right now wants to assert that they have a religion, and some do. I mean, like you said, Catholic hospitals, for example, which are Catholic schools, they're probably at the core of a lot of this, I'm guessing, particularly given that there's 5 or 6 Catholics on the court. But that if you or I were had a corporation and we were employers and we wanted to assert our religious right, in quotes, to basically tell the women who work for us, sorry, we're not going to pay for any part of your medical expenses that involve your female parts, I suppose would be the simple way to say it. Then in order to be able to have that ability to essentially discriminate, we had to fill out a 1 or 2 page form and submit it to the federal government and say, with this form, I'm asserting my right, and now I can go ahead and discriminate against the women who work for me. Do I have that right so far?
Pretty much. The 2 other slight modifications. First, the government made it easier in saying you don't have to fill out our form. Just tell us. Just write us a letter saying that if you prefer. But second, an important consequence that does flow from that is that even though the employer doesn't provide that coverage, the government, through the ACA mandate, makes sure that an insurance company provides that coverage for the women.
Right.
So they still can get it, but not technically by the employer.
Well, the employer was never providing, employers don't write checks to hospitals to begin with. So aren't they... Are they asserting that they should pay less for the health coverage because the health coverage is going to provide less?
No, what they're saying is that they don't want their insurance plan to be directly providing the contraceptives. But what the government will do is make a different arrangement under those circumstances with that or another insurance company to make sure that the woman gets the coverage, but the employer is not involved, which is why it seems to me it's very hard for that employer to argue that it's a burden on their religion if it's the ACA, not them, that provide the coverage.
It's also another subsidy that we're providing to religious organizations on top of their tax-exempt status. We're also paying for the contraceptive and other associated needs of their female employees.
I think you can argue that. But what's even worse here, Tom, is that what these employers are arguing is that they should be able to stop these women from getting the coverage, even if they don't have any direct involvement in providing it. And if they can do that, why not Hobby Lobby and the other private companies, so that literally millions of women could find themselves without this coverage?
So we have employers who literally want to say to women, this is so bizarre, Elliot. They're saying these particular women, Jane and Sally and Susan and whatever, we want to make sure that not only that we don't pay for their contraception or for their whatever it may be. Not only that we don't pay for that, but that they don't even have a means to get it
under the ACA, which they're guaranteed to have.
Under the Affordable Care Act, right? And the power that we have to prevent these women from having access to birth control is that we happen to be their employers.
And that we have a religious objection, which goes back to my point that what this doctrine would do, if the court accepts it, would be to allow these individuals, these employers, to turn their religious liberty from a shield that protects them into a sword to go after other people, to go after the rights of these women.
I don't have a legal basis to say the woman who lives in the house next door to me, I don't think should have access to birth control because she's only had one kid, and really, shouldn't people have 12? And the Bible says that sort of, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm just going to go over and make sure that she doesn't get birth control. Well, I can't do that as her neighbor, but if I happen to be her employer, this is what they're saying they want to have the power to do, to say to my next door neighbor, who's the woman, if she happens to work for me, even though I'm not paying for your contraception, even though you're willing to, even though the federal government is willing to provide it to you at no cost to you or to me, I want to prevent that from happening.
Effectively right, because they would not tell anybody that they're not providing it themselves, so the government would have no way to know that they need to go ahead and provide it independently through an insurance company. It's a crazy view, in my view. Now, that totally distorts the Religious Freedom Restoration Act that it's based on.
Yeah, we got about a minute and a half here, Elliot. What is the name of the case that's coming before the court, and when?
It's called, I think it's Zubnik versus Burwell. It'll be argued probably next spring, and we may want to talk about it further when we get closer to that point.
Right.
But it has the potential, and I know we don't have much time to talk about it in detail, to not only affect these women, but, for example, this is exactly the same kind of argument that the clerk in Kentucky made as to why she shouldn't have to issue a marriage license. This argument, if accepted, to allow religious people to decide on their own if they're allowed to claim they have a substantial burden by what happens to somebody else, would totally distort the concept of religious liberty, and again turn it into a sword, not a shield, the way it's supposed to be.
Wouldn't one way to fight this be to bring an absurd claim? To say, for example, I'm Jewish or I'm Muslim, so therefore, government-sponsored lunch counters can't have pork in them, that kind of thing.
It would be an interesting point to see what would happen if this argument is accepted.
If it wasn't Catholics arguing this before a court that is majority Catholic, but instead was, the Church of Satan worshipers, saying, they'd have less credibility, frankly, than Jews or Muslims talking about pork, and not to equate Jews or Muslims with Satan worshipers, but I'm just talking about religion to have a.
You're absolutely right. I mean, there was an effort to try to have the name of the case the court took to be Little Sisters of the Poor versus Burwell, again trying to play on the religious sensibilities.
Right.
The court didn't buy that particular maneuver. As usual, the key here will be how will Justice Kennedy vote. He was the fifth vote in Hobby Lobby. He was a little reluctant, had a concurring opinion that had some reservations. I think we're very hopeful that he'll have a lot of reservations here, and we'll go with Ginsburg and the other moderates and reject this argument.
Because this could be a mind-bogglingly slippery slope.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Right.
Amazing. Elliot Mintzberg, with Senior Fellow with People for the American Way, pfaw.org. Get thee over there and check it out at People4, FOR. Thank you, Elliot.
You're very welcome.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.